Welcome to the Eyes on the Text series here on my Be a Tree channel. We're going to look a little bit at God's shining his face on us. Psalm 67. Let's turn there. We're already there. May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face shine on us. Why? So that your ways may be known on earth, your salvation among all peoples. This shining on us language, I pulled this up, the shine language here in Logos on Bible Word Study, and we have this Hebrew word. It's like or. I'm not exactly sure how to say it. I'm sure I'm messing that up. But when you look at all the different ways that it's translated in the NIV and you come down to shine here, make, shine, brighten, give light. And we could look at all of these passages. In fact, I think if we push on this one, we'll get them all. And you can just see, I know this is a little bit small on here, but we can see Genesis 1:15, obviously, and 1:17. Let's see, what do we have in Ezra? Yeah, the Lord our God be gracious in leaving us a remnant. Um, Now, okay, give light. Looks like that's what it went to there. But shine here also gets us to number 625. About to sneeze. Hold off. Sorry. We know this Aaronic a blessing from Aaron, the Aaronic blessing here, because you hear it in church a lot. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you. That's the presence of God. Oftentimes, this idea of presence of God comes from this Hebrew word that is translated here, face, the panach, the presence of the Lord, to be in relationship with God, that have his favor pointing toward us and that his grace is coming towards us. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Wow. That his face would be towards us and that we would have peace at the same time. A lot of times in the Bible, when the face of God comes towards someone, they are ready to get out of the way. Thinking about Peter, Lord, I'm sinful. Get me out of here, in the boat after the Lord reveals his glory. But you can just see so many passages here, Psalm 31, let your face shine on your servant. Save me with your unfailing love. Isaiah. And then sometimes it just talks about it more in the metaphor. We do have here in Psalm 139, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is like light to you. This light as being fundamental, this shining and light is fundamental to God. 2 Corinthians 3 and 4 obviously are, if you go and look at them, it's full of the idea that we would see by contemplating Christ the light of the glory of God and be transformed, be into evermore into his likeness. Back to this Psalm 67, this idea that we would experience the presence and the face of God shining on us, enjoy his pleasure of us, accept it, that his ways would be known in the earth, that your ways be known in all the earth, and your salvation among all the nations. The more you read the Bible in the Old Testament and the New Testament, you see that this Bible is not meant for one people group. It certainly wasn't meant just for the Americans who didn't exist at that time, but it didn't exist just for the Jews either. Look throughout the way that the people were taught to pray. May the peoples praise you, O God. The peoples praise you, O God. May the nations be glad and sing for joy. Pastor John Piper here in the States coined this phrase that missions exist because worship does not exist, meaning there's places that are not yet singing for joy and being glad in God and knowing the joy of his presence. And so there's a wrongness to that, and there's a compulsion in the scriptures to go and let the nations be glad. That's why missions exist. It exists for God, and it exists for the goodness of people that people go to. So, whatever bad press maybe some missionary is rightly or wrongly, gotten in some time or in some place, the overall overriding goodness of his name being proclaimed and his salvation to all peoples. May the peoples praise you, God. May all the peoples praise you. May the land yield its harvest, God. Our God blesses us. May God bless us still so that all the ends of the earth will fear him. I looked at this passage the other day uh, in another video, but just go back to Joshua 2:10, when Rahab and has heard in Jericho that the waters had opened up not once in the Red Sea, but again when the Israelites were coming over. Actually, that was the Red Sea, chapter 2. Chapter 3 and 4 is when it will happen again, when the waters open up in the Jordan and the Israelites will come through again on dry land. A second sort of like baptism of this next generation, repeating what had happened for the previous generation. So it says, though, Rahab says, this woman who's thought to be a prostitute, depending on how you understand the Hebrew word, but I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, and then blah 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 about those guys being destroyed. When we heard it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. It's this right thinking has come into place because Israel followed the Lord and walked across the Red Sea. And though there are people that are wiped out in this, like, really arguably the most bloody book of the Bible in Joshua, there is also, you can see that it is still even then not ethnocentric, that the nations are being reached here. And Rahab not only comes to faith, her whole family comes with her, and she becomes the ancestry line of the King of David and the King, Jesus. So let the nations praise you, O God. Let all the nations praise you. The face of the Lord shining upon us. This is part of spiritual warfare, is knowing the pleasure and the goodness of God. That's one of the things I don't want to do in the spiritual warfare series, is to put everything in the box of the manipulation of directly of the demonic or directly encountering them consciously, because they are often subconsciously and behind the scenes operating to turn people away from God, to turn people away from worshiping him. Whatever God's mission is, they are opposed to that. The video that we did on the image of God, I'll go ahead and link this one at the end of this video to that one, that the image of God project in man becomes what is under attack by Satan. And we see that throughout the Old and the New Testament, starting with Genesis 3, this imaging of man, of God in man, male and female working together. And yet that whole thing begins to break down as Satan comes and questions, God is not really for you. God is against you. So who has turned their face? Who has turned their face? It's the human that has turned away from God. So let's just look at one passage here in the New Testament, and we'll just see if we can notice any connections here. In Hebrews 4, there's all this calling back to the early days of the entrance of the people into out of Exodus and into the land. And this quote here from is this from well, it's from Psalms, but that's even going back earlier. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Um, we have this idea that Jesus is the high priest, Jesus, the Son of God. And then I just love this verse here. He was tempted in every way as we are, yet without sin. And so this high priest that, his face is toward us, we're praying for him to have his face shine upon us. This is a call for us to move towards him. James 4 says that, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. So here it is. Let us then approach, let us then prosterkomai, let us come up to what? God's throne. God's throne, God's throne of grace. I read this for the first time in post-imperial China, but having been to the Forgotten City and some of those other places where like the layers and layers of defense and places, forbidden areas that no one would ever go into, to think that God's throne would be a throne of grace and that you should then approach it. You should approach it with what? With confidence, it says. Look at that. With confidence, with boldness. Wow. Let's make that larger. Why? So that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. It's us that is turned away from God. We have hidden from him. Got to go to one more passage here. Isaiah 59, I think it's verse 2. Yeah. It says, surely the arm of the Lord is not too short to save, his ear is not too dull to hear, but your iniquities have separated you from your God, and your sins are what have hidden his face from you. It's like you have put up blockades to not see the face of God, not the other way around. So Hebrews 4:19, I think, is that right down here? 16. Let us approach God's throne of grace with confidence because of the blood of Jesus that we see up here. He is well disposed towards us, and we can have confidence because we have a high priest who empathizes with us. We have a good priest, an incredibly successful priest who opens up this way and ensures us that God is there not to destroy us when we approach his throne. I thought about that throne of grace thing and thought, wow, that would be the exact opposite to those like early imperial or most kingdoms of the world that like you would approach that with confidence and that would be a throne of grace. And so the only place that we can go with confidence that life will be good and that God will be good to us is towards him. It's like think of 360 degrees, and there's like one of those degrees is towards God, and all the other ones are variations of skewing away from him. If you're moving away from grace, if you're moving away from mercy, then all of a sudden in the time of need, you don't have that. You don't have that presence of God, that relationship with God that is offered here in the book of Hebrews. So this was a quick eyes on the text video. As you can see, I'm trying to keep me small and the text big, and I would love for you to like this video, comment, push back, throw another Bible verse in there that would be helpful for other people who are reading. Maybe somewhere where I haven't gone. I mean, I didn't really even scratch the surface of this face shining passages. I would love to, throw another one in there. So much more places that we can and will go in terms of the light of God. That very nature of God is light, and then his face and his presence and his grace. Our sin is the thing that blocks that. But yeah, subscribe, please. Please ask your friends to subscribe so that this channel grows a little bit and I feel encouraged to keep making content like this. It's a blessing for me. I hope that it's a blessing for you. God bless, and we will look forward to seeing you guys in another video soon.